Okay, thank you. It's an honor to be in such company. I've really, really enjoyed the open mic poems so far. I was here in June and my life's taken a few twists and turns. And when I was getting my set ready, I thought I would do the theme of something old, something new, something borrowed, and something blue. And there is going to be, in the blue section, there are going to be trigger warnings in there. My borrowed is a poem by Agha Shahid Ali from the Half-Inch Himalayas, 1987. It's called Stationary. The moon did not become the sun. It just fell on the desert in great sheets, reams of silver, handmade by you. The night is your cottage industry now. The day is your brisk emporium. The world is full of paper. Write to me. And I forgot, I usually start with a land acknowledgement. So I'm coming to you from Canada. We had about 8 inches of fresh snow today, and our temperature right now is equivalent of 21 degrees Fahrenheit. So we're into our snow. And I live on lands that were traditionally inhabited and traversed by a number of Indigenous peoples, including the Piikani, Siksika, Kainai, Nakota, and Tsuut'ina. And I would like to acknowledge them and thank them for having brought culture, language, and poetry to the land and for their stewardship of the land. I was inspired by that stationary poem to write just a short little poem. And so this is my something new. You are the first sets of ears listening to this one, Ink and the Moon. Cradled on canvas, ink stains fingertips deep as night, while the moon spreads her splendor across the sky, softening the path of stars. The next poem I'd like to share was published this year in the Stroll of Poets anthology out of Edmonton. And it was inspired by some lines by Alice Major, who is an Edmonton poet. My poem is called Laundry Lines. Laundry lines, traversing, intersecting this time and away, this land and past. Nonna's broad cotton sotana, eyelet embroidered at the neckline. Papa's woolen canutiera, knit to keep out cold. Napkins, aprons, tablecloths, waving like a welcome. Adolescent blood-stained bed sheets, bleached white again by sun. Popsicle-hued rompers I sewed when the kids were young. Do you remember those breezy days? My undergarments snugged up next to yours on the laundry lines. The next poem is called Leaves, and we're coming into the something blue. And this one actually fits the November theme. Leaves of golden birch strewn on kitchen floor. How do they get in? The sliding door left open for the cat, or the caramel silk of the sheltie who has lain in the lawn. They swirl at the foot of the front steps, reconfigure, luminesce, on a carpet of grass that should have died under first fall of snow, but didn't. These golden leaves, this sacred space, this pagan place, translucence, ancestors seeking solace, walk alongside us in shadow. All leaves soon, too soon, my being will transmute to memory. My spirit will swirl in splendor, appearing inexplicably at someone else's golden door. It was a strange summer for me. My son was married, which was amazing. And then I traveled back to Toronto where I was born and went to visit my parents, and both of my parents were declining, my father physically and my mother cognitively. And it was really hard to leave. But before I left, I wrote this poem. It was inspired by the last stanza of a poem by Robert Frost called Reluctance, and I'll put that into the chat after. I'll read the epigraph first. Robert Frost wrote, Ah, when to the heart of man was it ever less than treason to go with the drift of things, to yield with a grace to reason, to bow and accept the end of a love or a season? And my poem is called To Sit Quietly. Ah, such treason, to sit quietly with death, to not shake his cold grip from my arm, to know he waits expectant in the hall, my father's ragged exhalation tainted by his breath. My father's face grown gaunt, teeth missing from his skull, fingers spectral, and sometimes his gaze dims as if he sees us only from afar, a figment of himself, wavering between this realm and next, like summer bed sheets flapping in the wind. Photographs bring heaves and tears as he recalls the young man he once was. He moans in his sleep and he talks in his dreams. Emaciated legs no longer hold his withered frame. He winces when I tend his wounds, but brightens when he says my name. And I think death must mean no great harm, for 90 is a long time on this earth. And so I no longer resent the tender touch of that which I no longer dread. But oh, what anguish to sit quietly with death and not shake his cold grip from my arm. So I'd like to acknowledge Billy Brown out of Albuquerque, who published this in Fixed and Free. Thank you. I flew home at the end of 2 weeks and then had a phone call the very next morning that my father had taken a turn for the worse, so I returned. And so the next one is even darker than that one. Father passed away in August 3rd. And this one is called 9:30. The reason for the title, I had gone into one of my writing circles for solace, and we had to pick a time of day and then write an autobiography with as much specific detail as we could. And we were asked to choose a time, and I chose after lunch, which is like 1:30 or 2. But what I didn't realize is that we'd be switching times. So I ended up with somebody else's 9:30. And because it was Toronto, it was 7:30 in Calgary, and I was writing at 9:30. So it seemed the right thing to do. 9:30. It is 9:30. My body says sleep. My mind says rest. My heart steps out into the night, leaving the door open in search of the call of coyotes. If I had a slingshot and 7 smooth stones, 5 smooth stones, even 3, I would pluck the streetlights from the sky one by one, so that all that would be left would be the cold moon and me. I no longer care about the stars. Their stories no longer matter, the chatter of man, the warmth of fire and field, none of it. There was a place in my father's garden, a bower of fig, and when I stood in it, sunlight filtered through various spots as if our sky held multiple suns. That was the day after my father died. It is 9:34. I looked at the clock and noticed when 24 hours had slipped by after his death. He passed at 00:18. Time has become an accordion with only sad strains stretching out and tumbling past. It has been 6 days since he passed, 30 hours since his cold body was jacklifted into a maw, sealed with putty and trowel and drill. My father had a trowel just like that. He too used tools. I had gone down to the garage into one of those balsa wood baskets that once held summer tomatoes, tucked one of my father's tools into my tote for the funeral home, in case I needed to feel him. A wrench. and I tucked a few nails into the pocket of his best suit, some loose change. He always had nails in his pocket when he worked. A carpenter, like the Father of Christ, nails and coins sometimes fell out of his pockets when he lay down to nap. And when I was tasked with vacuuming the couch cushions on a Saturday morning, I would find them, quarters and pennies and nickels and dimes. And always a pencil tucked behind his ear, a smile on his face as bright and brilliant as the Sicilian sky. It is now 9:38. I felt his spirit surround me while his lungs still expanded and emptied and his pacemakered heart still beat. His hands still warm. That was before his forehead felt like he had just been taken out of deep freeze. When I brought my lips to his brow in the casket, I cupped his head with both hands. He didn't like to be cold. Gomogliami, he would implore. Cover me, please. He asked so little of me at the end. His spirit hovering just past 4 that afternoon, my kids coming in from their day-long travel, me at the entrance of the hospital breathing real air for the first time in days. I felt him and felt his peace. And if I sit quiet for a moment, I can still feel it. But will it fade? Like the taste of salt in the sea, the aroma of coffee, that hug that feels like it could go on forever if only we could stand still enough. I do not know. It is 9:42. Thank you. This one's going to be coming out in the December issue of Fixed and Free, and the next one is going to be coming out in early next year, as part of the League of Canadian Poets, Fresh Voices. And this one actually is one I'm going to share with you because it's also a visual poem. So, all right, can you see that? Reflections on the gap?
Yes.
Okay. You are traversing the liminality of now and forever. My sister held your hand as you drew your last and told me as your touch faded, finger by finger, until it was only in her pinky and then gone. But I feel you differently. In the air I draw into my lungs, in the sky, such a soft blue, striches of white in the flurry of sparrows flying up into trees, and the call at morning and at dusk of the red cardinal. And that's the end of the section of the blues, of the blue poem. So I'll stop the share there. I'm going to change directions now and read from Consonant Lights, which is a collection that I contributed to, and it was published this summer in Ontario. And this one was inspired by Pablo Neruda. And my apologies if I massacre the Spanish, but I will try. He wrote, Escóndeme en tus brazos por esta noche sola. Hide me in your arms just for this night. And so I've written, hide me in your arms. From the clawing hands of time, still the pendulum. Let the world spinning stop. Your heartbeat keeping rhythm to our love. Eyes convey words that no human ear can hear. Fingertips trace unspoken promises onto flesh. The sun goes down and rises up again as we glide our way back to the ticking talk of time. And then in Rendezvous, which is another collection that I contributed to this summer, and again, it was a group of Ontario poets, which was facilitated by Zoom. This one is called Awoken. I have awoken from a sleep unsure where dream ends. Animals speak to me. I soar from cliff, submerge with whale, sit the nest in which I lay my cobalt eggs. There is a stone beneath my tongue, 3 almonds sewn into the lining of my coat. A map of symbols carved onto the apex of my brain, and a song, a siren song, sung in soft words unknown. The next piece I wrote last summer, 2 summers ago. It was a COVID summer, and it's included in the Wine Country Writers Festival inaugural collection. And I was graced with being the judge for poetry for the festival that year, even though we did the whole thing online. And this poem is called Tireless Travail. Travail is the French word for work. To hear the wind and know there are no answers, to see dragonfly in flight, singly or paired, double-winged, blue, green, butterfly of orange rust, rainforest born, another black-winged, laced in white. To know that everything in this forest, this 1,000 shades of green and brown, is living. And when these plants lay down their lives, they nurture next. They're always alive. Yellow jacket, mosquito, fly, mushroom frilling mossy stump, lily pads, golden smudges on the blackness of the surface of the pond. This pond created by beaver, the tireless travail. To know the pond created by beaver and not see beaver, to know the tireless travail of creation. The next piece is called Solstice Song, and a very good friend and collaborator of mine, his name is Jim Jackson. He helped me by putting this poem to music, so it's available on Bandcamp. And I'm not going to play that, but I am going to read the poem. It's a solstice song. Bury me in ashes, bury me in bone, bury me in mountain land 1,000 miles from home. Bury me the depth of my height, the width of my wonderment and want. Toss yellowed roses onto fresh dug mound. Let each poet stand and utter one single syllable, unspeakable truth. For I have lived my seasons each, daffodil, iris, spring, splashed in summer lake, crown of buttercup, carpet auburn leaves under slate storm sky. And now I come into my winter, each day shorter, each night deeper, and the air stings my cheek, burns my lung. Within walls of wood and stone do I retreat to fire's glow, pull covers close. Winter, an invitation to dream, infinite possibility of night. Memories, reveries, reflections, ruminations, circle growing smaller, encompassing only my flesh, my soul. Lodged within me deep, seeds of yesteryear, child, student, au pair, wife, teacher, mother, poet, lover. This winter, though, is not to be my last, my trunk not yet withered. My roots run deep in rich brown ground, my branches still bear fruit, and the secret of bee in blossom whispers yet within. And in this moment, when the southern third basks in golden light, now is our star-filled night. Snow reflecting moon's blue glow, muted hush. Besides embers glow do I take refuge, and soon, oh soon, the axis will tilt as we journey closer to the glorious face of the sun. But until that moment comes, bury me in ashes, bury me in bone, bury me in mountain land 1,000 miles from home. The next piece I would like to share, thank you, is a piece that was also put to music, and it was not put to guitar, but it was put to piano. So a classical pianist took Debussy's La Jeune Fille aux Cheveux de Lin, the young girl with flaxen colored hair, and adapted the timing so that it fit with a poem of mine called I Find Myself, which was published in the States in the Tiny Seed Journal last year. So I'm going to screen share that one. And share sound. And I seem to have lost it. So I'm just going to reopen the share just a moment. Okay. Escape. Okay, try that again. Oh, there it is. Okay, make it big and play it. I find myself. When I want to find myself, I lose myself in the thickest of thickets, past the stone around which water works its way, burbling. The tremble of silver grey wolf willow, the sweetness of May Day in bloom. Gnarled fingers of ancient roots grip dust brown ground. I close my eyes to see the tree beneath the tree, as wide and as deep as the tree that we see above ground. Its unspoken symmetry. I imagine the whisper of secrets in the silent below, worms and creatures without shell burrowed in blind earth. My eyes rest upon a pair of waterfowl, the blue-winged teal, crescent white face, his mate, invisible, save for movement in winter dead grasses and sludge. Watching their wordlessness becomes a meditation. I follow the path along the water, the song of thrush bringing me back, and I see my life in the bend of this river.
Yay! Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Woo!
Beautiful. Oh,
Bravo.
thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Well done.